Um, oh, Hi everyone. Okay, so I wanted to come to you because I did finish the Jeffrey Dahmer's show. And I think that um uh it's interesting because I know that there's a lot of people who are arguing not to watch it because of the possible glorification of Jeffrey Dahmer. I don't I clearly think that those people who say that hasn't watched it. I'm not sure if I can say that this is uh the topic is not good, right? And there's a lot that is clearly may not be as accurate, but I do think as a person who grew up in the 80s. I was a teenager when this happened in the 90s. And I'm going to say that I was aware of what was happening. And I was talking to a colleague of mine, and I agree that even though there's, as I was looking at some of the real victims of who testified against him in court, I actually did remember some of their faces in some of the incidents. However, I must admit that over time in my head, I concluded that they were probably white people that he killed and ate. I did not, and I think part of this is just that it's over time my memory changed, and as how my colleague was like, well, part of this memory shift is that most serial killers, kill people within their same race. And it's like, that's a very good point. Didn't even think about it. But what I thought was more fascinating about it, it really, if you take a step back from the Jeffrey Dahmer story, I think what is most disturbing is how does police see people of color and gay people, and the intersection of if you're gay and a person of color, they really don't care about you at all. And I think that is the most depressing. And so when you have these Black women, Black folks who are like, something's wrong, it stinks, I hear noises, and it's just this consistent, oh, it's not our business, oh, it's not our thing, oh, it's not this, or and the consistent dismissal of people of color is pretty sickening. And the fact that the two officers who were involved in this received a suspension, and of course they got back on the job, and they literally kept calling the father of one of the victims and saying stuff like, get back on the boat, you should leave, talking about the settlement numbers, you don't deserve 10 million, you don't deserve 850,000. Like, I mean, I think that is just despicable if that is true, right? I also will say, as a whole, I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer grandmother is to me one of the winners. Like, she's like, look, I don't trust you, something's off with you. And he was drugging people and bringing them back to his grandmother's house. And she's like, okay, well, I'm gonna sit here and wait until these, until something, until they wake up. And stuff like that saved their life, saved a couple of these people's lives. And that's unfortunate. And really, older women and Black women um, are largely ignored. They're nosy. And so they're going to investigate everything. and you really should listen to them. And I thought that was the biggest tall tale of all of it. You need to pick up the phone. You need to, I mean, you need to take them seriously when they say something's amuck, something's off, something's not right. And the Niecy Nash character, Glenda, she played such a good role. Oh my gosh, she's so good, so talented. Anywho, I it's apparent that he was drugging these white guys at gay bars, and he would take them, hold them, he would take them, and they started being very vocal about this. And so he was not allowed to go into white gay bars. So he had to kind of go into places that were predominantly Black gay bars or predominantly people of color. And and that's kind of how he was able to attract these people to come to his apartment. And I mean, it's just one thing after the other, and it's just a hard watch. I mean, they do get into some of the gory details. I mean, gory visuals of this. I mean, the one where he kills his deaf boyfriend, and I was just so heartbroken for her and for that young boy. I mean, I look at all of them because they're between the ages of 14 and 23 as just like these these young men who were absolutely had so much to live for. And he cut them up. And then he was upset that he was getting evicted finally because of the smell and the complaints. He comes over to Glenda's house talking about here's a sandwich and offers her a sandwich. And clearly she's like, I'm not eating that. Um, I'm not like I'm not sure if that's true or not. But there's some things that I think that probably are true. The his mother coming now, there is a strong attempt to try to explain Jeffrey Dahmer's kind of background. And yeah, his mother is not cool. His dad absolutely tries extremely way too hard to be there for for his son. I mean, am I upset that he's always there for his son? No, but I think that I'd have to leave my kid. Like I'd be like, look, you on your own. You need this public defender. And, plead guilty, you going to jail, and I hope you make it out alive. And then the idea that he would write a book thinking about, oh, I'm going to get a movie from this. And you don't think that the victims would want that? Like, why would the victims want you to make a movie, Jeffrey Dahmer's father, to make a movie off of him and to have a book written by him, even if he claims I'm trying to help people out? Really? You're trying to help people out? I mm, I think it's in poor taste and in doing all of these interviews. And I do remember that time, but there was a huge fixation on serial killers. There was a movie that came out in the 90s that was based on the serial. So Joyner Weaver was a person who studied serial killers. There was a movie called Seven. It's a good movie, but I won't watch it again. There was another movie with Denzel Washington about serial killers. So the 90s had this huge fixation of serial killers. I mean, they were all constantly doing something on Manson. I actually had a friend who taught one of the books, Son of Sam, and I was just like, no, Helter Skelter. I was like, there's no way I'm teaching Helter. There's no way I'm reading Helter Skelter. I have no interest because that was something that was attached to Manson. And I mean, yes. And that Son of Sam movie that came out about a serial killer in New York that was what's it? I can't Spike Lee. It was a Spike Lee joint. I mean, so America in the 90s was absolutely fixated, and Gerardo used to have that kind of stuff on the show. Sally Jesse Raphael. I'm gonna be honest, like the thing that I liked about it, because I know that a lot of people kind of stop at episode 4, episode 6, because it gets kind of gruesome. And the thing that I do like, even if it is fabricated, is the time that it takes to talk about more of the victims and their impact on this. And they don't go through all of the victims, but they go through enough of them to where you get a glimpse at how inhumane this man absolutely was. Like, there's zero humanity in this man. And I feel no way about, even when they show the gruesomeness of him being killed. I'm like, I feel nothing. But there are some moments that I was like, bruh. Um, Number one, his father is going through this whole process of, uh, did I do it? Was I the culprit? Clearly, his ex-wife was like, yeah, I mean, you're the one who taught him how to be a cadaver, and with roadkill at a very young age, and gave him this fixation and stuff. And so the dad is struggling with this. And the dad begins to be like, part of this is my DNA inside of you. And I used to have these thoughts of killing people and dismembering them. And I was like, you're telling your wife this? And she doesn't say it just once. He says it multiple times in the film. And I'm just thinking, in the series, I'm going to have to say that if my husband turns around and be like, yeah, I have fantasies for a long time about killing and dismembering them, and that is sexually arousing, I think that is a time that I'm be like, you know what, I can't sleep next to you with my eyes closed. Like, I can't trust you, because I'm glad that you think that this is not appropriate behavior, but the fact that you are admitting to me, I think that's something you admit to a therapist. That is not something you admit to your wife who is sleeping next to you. But this woman is better than me. And do you know that she stays with him? Okay, not the first. After the first time, she still stays. After the second time, she's still there. The third time, she is still ride or die. I don't get it. The fact that his mother is actually physically sitting here, she literally drives to one of the victims' houses to knock on the door and walk and ask to sit down in the house and want to communicate about how, I wish you all would talk to, do your victim statements to see if it can help contribute to Dahmer getting, put into a mental hospital. Like, bruh, um, ma'am, no. Like, I mean, the woman had so much grace. I don't know if that's true or not. She actually had so much grace in speaking to her. I literally would have cursed her behind out, get off my porch, and you're harassing me, and close the door. She attempted supposedly to commit suicide. And again, I mean, it's very difficult to have sympathy for someone who leaves your child for months with, and both parents don't ever come by the house, don't ever see how he's doing. I have no idea where his money was coming from to buy food. I mean, he was straight home alone. I struggle, and I'm not saying that any of that are reasons as to why he turned into this, but I'm saying that I honestly still don't care like about his background, and I'm not sympathetic against his father. Absolutely not sympathetic for his mother. So none of these people are sympathetic. I know that if I was his younger brother, which we don't see anymore after like the first or second episode, because he's kind of like just hanging around in the background. I know that I changed my name. My name is no longer Dahmer. It's going to be Richardson, Robertson, Wilkins, anything, but it won't be Dahmer because I am not living that life where everyone is going to be looking at me like, you going to kill me too? Like, how is your dating? And I think overall, this is the bigger conversation that I think needs to have. And this is a conversation that a lot of people don't really want to have. I want to say, I mean, please hear me now. Like, dating is scary. And I always think back to when I was younger and I was out dating. And a lot of it, you kind of learn on your own when it comes to what you can and cannot do. And I will say that one of the reasons why being in a sorority or fraternity, well, being in a sorority, I think historically Black sorority, because those other sororities, from my experience, from my observance, me observing those other sororities at my campus that I was at, there were a lot more spaces that could have harmed people, harmed women. But for HBC, historically Black sororities and fraternities, from my experience, to me, I did feel like it was a little easier dating because I dated majority um, in my fraternity, in my social circle. The downfall is that it's very difficult to date because a lot of people in California kind of know each other because there's not that many Black people. And then it's not that many people who are Greek. And so you are literally 10, less than 10, but maybe five people away from knowing the next person. But as a whole, I still feel like I still, my overall feeling is still this. I think it's really, dating within that circle, it still allowed a level of security to where if a person, horrible rumors would get started and that would absolutely affect their dating. But there was a level of safety that you felt because, and I'm not saying that that's something that I should have felt. I mean, in hindsight, I think it's some of the stuff that I would do. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. You would go back to somebody's after party at somebody's house, and I just met you, and I'm going to go hang out at your house afterwards. That's crazy. I wouldn't do that now. And I just met you. I wouldn't do that now, but I understand people in this age group that, especially Dahmer was it, but I was dealing with, would do that. But take that off the table. If I was just dating, when I dated after college, a lot of the people that I dated was not all, but a lot were still kind of attached to the Greek scene. And there were still kind of people that you kind of got to know each other first before you just go hang out. I mean, my husband's not Greek, but I knew him a little bit before he came, before I knew him a few months first. And I think that that's an important aspect of these kind of things. So I've never I met you at a club and you're just a complete stranger. Because I feel like even in Greek world, even if you're a complete stranger, you're not that complete stranger because we're at a Greek event. So there seems to be some level of attachment. But then I also went with my instincts and say, person is cool. If I didn't get a comfortable vibe, and I'm gonna tell you, I had a rule of thumb Sorry, it's my kid's toy. I had a rule of thumb that if my spirit was not at ease with you the first time that we went out, or even if I've known you, we hung out, and if I took a nap at your house and I was just like, I don't feel at ease, I couldn't take a nap, like my body was just like, don't sleep, then I knew, or don't put your guard down, or don't do anything, then I knew that we couldn't be around each other anymore. Something's off. So I think it is important to kind of listen to your instincts when you're dating. And I say all that to say, I'm talking about from a heteronormative lifestyle. Dealing with homosexuality, I think that, and this is not the first show that dealt with this, and I can't remember, I'm so sorry, but there's a couple of shows where it just led to me coming back to thinking about being, and I don't think that a lot of heterosexuals we really do think of dating for homosexuals and the LGBTQ plus community to be very same, like the same experience as being heterosexual. And the more that I think these shows are kind of an important aspect of highlighting the dangers to people like me who doesn't really think about, I'm aware of the dangers. I think about Isaiah Thomas's son. I had a student who who I had a former student who was raped twice, just by um, one of them was by a guy he knew, and the other one was by, he's just out having fun. Um, and I think about, so it's not like I wasn't aware, but I think that these shows kind of bring up to the issue of the difficulty of of police taking you seriously because they don't view homosexuality as they think of it as a perverse thing when they should be taking assault equally as important as if it's a woman talking about a man. So I think that's part of that's number top of the list. The second issue is like how dangerous it must be to date in these homosexual relationships, and it's doubly if you're trans, because if people don't take violence against you seriously, then that gives people an even greater permission to commit violence against you. And so you have to trust that you're going home with someone and you won't die. And so it's mind-boggling. You won't die, you won't get hurt. And I've seen other people who've talked about this show and saying, I don't want to victim blame, and I was like, well, you're kind of victim blaming. I mean, you are victim blaming because no one goes back to someone's house after a party club and think you're going to be, killed. You really do think that you're vibing. Um, and, you know, that they have pretty good intentions. And so I just struggle with watching this even more and thinking about like how we all need to have more accountability and more understanding of the struggles that the LGBTQ plus community absolutely endures. And we need to take their voice seriously, more serious than what we are. I mean, I know there's a lot of strides that have happened, but we have so much more to go to treat them with dignity, respect, um, and making sure that their lives matter, um, their autonomy matters, their they are valued. So, I will see you the next time. I'm actually watching the show Reasonable Doubt. I think I am going to do a review on that as well. I think you should watch it. It's something I didn't think was going to be as good, but